Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for everyone for coming out. We got a very special show today. I'm very excited, and I have the pleasure of introducing Judge Diana Moreland and Judge Gilbert Smith Jr. For those that don't know, Diana Moreland is a graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy and Stetson University College of Law. She has been a circuit judge in the 12th Judicial Circuit since January of 2005. Prior to her election to the bench, she was a partner and shareholder with the law firm of Reinhardt and Moreland. And since taking the bench, she's been very active in judicial education, including teaching at judicial colleges, both Phase 1 and Phase 2, advanced judicial studies, county judges conference, and circuit judges conference. In addition, she has sought to improve the judiciary by serving on several statewide committees to increase efficiency. On June 30, 2023, Supreme Court Justice Munoz appointed her to serve on the Judicial Circuit Assessment Committee, which culminated in the submission of its final report and recommendation on December 1, 2023. In February 2023, she was honored by being unanimously elected by her peers to serve them as Chief Judge of the 12th Judicial Circuit commencing on July 1, 2023. We also have... And, to serve his second term. Thank you, Judge Mercurio, and just reelected. So, great honor. And also honored to have here today the gentleman in the top hat that stands before us, the Honorable Gilbert Smith Jr. He has been past president of the Manatee County Bar Association from 2003 to 2004. Grew up in Bradenton, graduated from Manatee High School, Manatee Junior College, USF, and University of Pacific Law School. He practiced law for 20 years before being elected as a circuit judge. Some color to his background. He believes that the 12th Judicial Circuit has a rich history which needs to be preserved for future generations. And if you've ever seen Judge Smith speak, you obviously know that. Before Judge Smith became a member of the 12th Circuit, he was a published author, and he is a published author, speaker, and community leader. Did you know he was a banker, a corrections officer, a dump truck driver, hospital orderly, and his favorite, a mortician? So with that said, we're first going to introduce Judge Moreland, who will be introducing Judge Smith. Thank you very much.
And Fred, for that call out, gets whatever assignment he wants next time. Good afternoon, everyone. And today my speech is going to be very small and short, and because the person that you're going to be hearing from mainly is Judge Smith. When I found out I was volunteered to do this, I went to Judge Smith and I discussed what my role was. And let me put it this way. I'm a warm-up act. That's it. So I looked up, what is a warm-up act? And a warm-up act is usually a musician, comedian, or even a magician who has the awesome responsibility for getting the audience appropriately excited and enthusiastic for the headliner. In most applications, the warm-up act is a usually young, an up-and-coming entertainer with a smaller following. So let's think about my qualifications here. Young, 60 plus. I've been performing a single act as a judge for 20 plus years. I don't have any musical abilities. I have no comedic skills, and I am unable to perform the simplest magic trick. And yet here I stand before you today as that warm-up act. So let me apologize up front. We are going to be discussing today history and its importance in community service. Some of the most often quotes that are given about history are, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, and history is written by the victors. But when it comes to legal history and legal historians, what are we speaking of? We're speaking of persons and scholars who study the evolution of the law, legal systems, institutions throughout history, analyzing legal doctrines and practices that have changed over time, often examining social, political, and economic context that shape those developments, providing valuable insight to current legal landscape by understanding its historical roots. Some of the areas specifically recognized under the title of legal historian or legal history are analyzing primary sources, interdisciplinary approaches to law, focuses on specific areas such as crime, civil law, property rights, comparing and an analysis of the legal system across different cultures, understanding the current law, informing legal reform, and social and cultural understanding. And that is why we're here today, that last one. Because I'm proud to say that in this warm-up act for the 12th Judicial Circuit, I argue that Gilbert Smith Jr. fits quite nicely into that last definition. He has, on his own, written numerous books so that we do not lose our historical perspective in the 12th Judicial Circuit, unique only to the 12th Judicial Circuit. I did a little research about some of the best-known historians that are out there. Examples that are recognized are John R. Langdon and Nicholas Perillo from Yale University. I also looked into who are the recognized legal historians in Florida. And they are former Supreme Court Justice Frederick Brennan Carl, the Dean of Florida University, Richard Matassar. And I will point out the one thing that is common about each of these people. All their books are beige, green, or red with gold leaf lettering. Some go way out on a limb and have men with robes on them, and the white wigs or peruques. Some have tall ships, and many have calligraphy with gravels. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see what our historian has on the front of his book. I will point out he does have a robe on there. He does have a peruke, but he also has some adult beverages, an artist, and people playing cards. I now hope that as this warm-up act for you, you are appropriately excited and enthusiastic to hear from our speaker. And I present to you Gilbert Smith, Jr.
Well, hello everybody, and I want to thank Judge Mercurio first for making this sort of an open luncheon, and I appreciate him announcing Judge Moreland's re-election, and I hope that others of you will feel at liberty to do the same thing. And I want to thank Judge Moreland for such a nice introduction, and one where she appeared to be going to where you were going to expect something very intellectual. Well, that might not be the case. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of the program. And after I wrote the first edition of Lawyers and Legends of Manatee County, a few interesting things happened. The following video is one of them.
I will never reject from any consideration personal to myself the cause of the defenseless or the oppressed or delay anyone's cause for lucre or malice. So help me God.
And so every lawyer's career begins with a promise and commitment to help those who cannot afford the legal services they so desperately need. Pro bono services are at the heart of a lawyer's duty. Pro bono means for the public good. Our constitutional due process rights ensure that persons charged with crimes receive legal representation when they cannot afford it through the office of the public defender. But who provides such services in all other areas of the law? Every lawyer in the 12th Judicial Circuit and every lawyer in Florida. The Florida Bar now mandates lawyers to provide legal services at no cost or at reduced cost to try to fill the needs of the public for the public good. But it wasn't always that way. Let's take a journey back in time. On January 9, 1855, Manatee County was established. It included all the land from about 10 miles north of the Manatee River, which is now Hillsborough County, all the area which is now Sarasota County, south to Charlotte Harbor, from the Gulf of Mexico east to the western shore of Lake Okeechobee. There were settlements all along the Manatee River. Except for these villages, most of the county was unexplored frontier, inhabited by wild animals. And I don't mean the lawyers. I mean real panthers, bears, wolves, and alligators. It was with this backdrop that the county seat was determined and located at the village of Manatee. Until the first courthouse was completed in 1861, county government had been conducting business in churches or stores. Once this courthouse was built, business from all 5,000 square miles of the county was conducted in one central location. This courthouse included a courtroom for the judiciary. Florida divided the judicial jurisdiction into circuits. Originally, the Southern Judicial Circuit, which stretched from Brooksville all the way to Key West, specifically encompassing what is now Manatee and Sarasota counties. During this era, the judges traveled to each county seat in the circuit. They often traveled many miles by horseback and became known as circuit riders. Enough for now about the judges. Let's look at one of the first attorneys, Edgar Mandelbert Graham, a veteran of the Civil War, and his family arrived in Manatee County in 1867. He was the first lawyer to reside in our geographical area. He practiced law, but also was a Florida legislator, a deputy clerk, and was the superintendent of schools. If that wasn't enough to keep him busy, he was also on the Board of Health and the Board of Trade. But in those days, he probably wasn't tracking billable hours. By this time, the government seat was moved from the village of Manatee 40 miles southwest into the wilderness. Pine Level was born. It wasn't much of a town, but it had a small wooden courthouse and a jail. The town began to grow, and by 1880, it had a post office, a sawmill, boarding houses, general stores, blacksmith, and churches. Oh, and it had saloons. Many saloons. Cowboys roamed the streets of Pine Level, patronizing those saloons, those many saloons. Not surprisingly, there were fights every night. Gunfights, knife fights, and just plain fist fights. It was no wonder that Pine Level earned its reputation as a rowdy town. Nevertheless, it was the county government seat for over 20 years. Granted, the first lawyers in Manatee County didn't have an abundance of legal work, but that didn't mean they had time on their hands. These lawyers needed to supplement their income. Many sought appointment to full or part-time positions with the government. They opened businesses outside of the practice of law. For example, they sold real estate and examined titles. They published a newspaper. They owned an abstract company, a tag agency, a nursery, as well as law offices. In 1886, John Hamilton Gillespie arrived, and with the Florida Mortgage and Investment Company, he began the development of downtown Sarasota. Few members of the community had money, so lawyers worked for barter or they worked for free. As commerce increased from the cattle, agriculture, shipping, and transportation, so did legal conflict. Lawyers were hired, but not always paid. They did the work because it was the decent and honorable thing to do. These early lawyers used their advocacy skills to build a better community. They became public servants as mayors, councilmen, and commissioners. They served as judges and justices of the peace. They used those special skills they acquired as lawyers to provide legal services to those who could not represent themselves, for the public good. As such, pro bono service began in Manatee and Sarasota counties.
That was filmed about 12 years ago, and for those in it, thank you for being in it. And I'm going to talk more about some things we need to do in the future with some videos to preserve our history. You know, Manatee County had a birthday last month. We're now 170 years old. And, you know, the people that settled here in the 1800s helped each other. And through the time, over time, disputes arose to where it was important and maybe necessary for there to be lawyers, solicitors, attorneys, and counselors of law. And then women joined the profession in the 1900s, and of course all of them and all of you have stories, some colorful, some more colorful than others, and sometimes they're entertaining stories. So I know you've noticed all the murals and the posters here of the mural, and there's one in particular that is to my right that was painted by Jack Manson in 1970. I know a lot of you have seen that. It may be new to some of the others. However, now if you'll be able to see it at home, and you can be able to identify everybody in that. And I'm going to talk more about Jack in a minute, but let's hear what he has to say, as well as a couple of his colleagues.
Woodward is, of course.
Oh, here we go.
Here's Woodward is there. He was the major domo of the bar when it came to land. And so he wouldn't pass a deed that was held by the entireties unless he could see that the marriage was consummated. And so here he is at night up there on the roof looking through his spyglass to see if the marriages are consummated.
So good.
I built a house that I'm still living in on Riverview Boulevard on the river there. And all the bedrooms faced out on the river, and there was a walkway outside of the bedroom. And I bought my daughter for Christmas one year an easel and paints. And she never used them, so I started to paint. And that's how I started, and I really got going.
But no formal training.
No. We had a rat skeller upstairs, and we had a television, and we'd order dinner brought in, and we had a real nice deal. But it was kind of drab, and so I started to paint on the walls. And that was the first one I did. And that was a picture that Jim Wallace had taken at a bar party out on the beach. A lot of those pictures were taken like that. This is Judge Boylston. You see his finger goes all the way through his hair. Now, he's still alive. He's over in Palmetto.
Right. No, it's wonderful.
But without Jim Wallace, and the reason I put that white wig on is he was bald. And so, well, he was,
Right.
I think his initials are down in the corner someplace. Because he really, without him, I couldn't have painted it.
Why is that?
Well, because I couldn't remember all those people, but he took he took an individual picture of each guy.
And when I saw it, I said, "Jack, I'm not in there." He said, he says, "Why not?" I said, "I don't know." I said, I wasn't. I was absent from the meeting that day that you took the picture that you painted it from." And he said, "Well, I'll find a place to put you." So he has me perched on the top
You
of
can
the.
point to it, I
the-
think. You just,
There's a martini glass there.
There it is. I see
And
it.
I don't even like martinis. I'm not sure whether it's that one or this one, but it's this one right there.
Yeah.
Because it has a fishing rod with it.
And that's a clue. You like to fish.
That's right. Yeah, I love to fish.
well, back in the day, say 1970, that painting there represents the Manatee Bar.
Correct.
At that time, so you're in there somewhere.
I'm in the back row here somewhere, and Jack told me, he said, "You're back there somewhere. I had to stick you in there." So I said, "Okay, thanks, Jack." But
So who's the super lawyer? Somebody has on over.
Oh, okay.
over to the right.
That was for Bill Grimes. And here, the T-shirt, he actually tried to get everybody in his office to wear kind of a uniform. But his sister, who was not a lawyer, she ran the office. I mean, she really was the boss, see? And I remember his father was there. And so that's why I painted Bill Grimes right on Carter Perry's T-shirt. And I put
And it's good likeness of him, too.
well, sure. Well, I had a good picture.
So I'm so thankful that I was able to visit with Jack last year before he died, and Jeff Goethe, his stepson, who's sitting in the back. I do appreciate Jeff for several things. One is for helping me get with Jack, and the other was to bring Jack to the bar luncheons. He's been doing that for many, many years. He brought Jack to many bar lunches. And, you know, talking about Jack for a minute,
Woodward is
Oh,
cool.
here we go.
whoops. Okay, so talking about Jack, he was the example of volunteering and performing community service as a lawyer and just as a person. He, from hobnobbing to U.S. presidents, which he did when he was with DeSoto, to hanging out and with Florida governors. He also, until in his 90s, he was in a serving line at Our Daily Bread, serving the homeless. And, you know, he's quite the example for all of us. Now, I'm showing some of these slides, and this is a reunion where some of people in this room are in that picture, Floyd, and a few others are in that. That's the reunion that was held about 10 or 12 years ago, where Jack had everybody in the mural at that time that was still alive at the country club. So we're going to do a little exercise in a minute, but I want to show you who have not seen it how large this mural is. And it's in the Manatee County Judicial Center, sort of on the first floor, somewhat hidden, but it's quite the. So I'm about to talk about somebody else we lost this year, Tom Gallen. But I think this is a good time for me for us to do some exercises here. And the first exercise is I would like for those of you who are in the mural to raise your hand, that's you, Bob, And Floyd, or stand, because I want to see who's here that's still in the mural. Floyd, there's, okay, who else? Anybody else? Okay, we've got 2 people. Now the next exercise, Bob and Floyd, now the next exercise, and I want this group to stand. And I'm one of them. I would like the family members of any family member of somebody that's in that mural to stand up. Debbie and Steve, Bobby, Mary Ann. We've got quite a few people. Candy, Jeff, anybody else? Thank you so much. You can have a seat. And something I want us, as a bar association, I hope we can do is preserve some history by more of these interviews with our members. And they don't have to be senior members. They can be any of us who have some history. But, you know, if you will, for those of you who have seen the mural close, now you're going to have a chance in the book to look at it. And you're going to see there are going to be some hidden little Easter eggs or hidden items in there, stories, that you're going to have to take a look at, because there are people, Floyd's here, Bob's here, they're going to have to tell us what those things mean. So I'm going to go through some slides for you, but I want to tell you there's a cobra on the table where they're playing poker, and there's a lawyer by the name of Robert Knowles that's playing a horn that's charming that snake. So there's got to be a story behind that, and I hope we can get that before we lose that history. Tom Gallen, of course, we know, died this year. And Tom, I have him, and I wanted to go through some slides of Tom because there's not a lot of people who knew that before Judge Gallen was on the bench, he was at one time one of the most successful and influential legislators in the state of Florida. And he was during the time that the Constitution was revised in 1968. Now, this is the north side of the Manatee River, and this young Cub Scout is someone that was a member of this bar association who, after he practiced law here for a few years, he went on to Tallahassee, but here's him practicing law, defending a criminal defendant. And anyway, this is Ralph Haben. And Ralph Haben was a member here, and he went on to be Speaker of the House. And he was very influential and helpful on having the Civic Center built. So there's Ralph now. He's still up in Tallahassee. Now, this is Manatee County, of course, as you've already seen on the side. And this is one of my favorite characters, Captain James Green, which you'll read about in the book. He was in the first one, but he's someone that refused to join the Confederate Army, and he held out until his exemption was repealed, and then he joined the Union forces. And his gamble was right, because he became the most influential politician and figure in Southwest Florida for so long. We get to Pine Level, and you've already seen that through the... Now, this is a photo I put in that's not in the first book. It's actually not in the second book, but there is a picture of Bone in it. This is Bone Mizell, Bonaparte Mizell, the most famous cowboy in Florida, and he's with his dad, who's on his left, and that's Morgan, and on his right is his uncle Enoch. And there's quite a lot of stories about him. I put this article up here just to talk about Pine Level and it being a ghost town now. There's not anything there, those of you go by. Here we are in Bradenton, and this is Corwin's Dock down at the end of Main Street in downtown Bradenton when it was Bradentown. And here's Main Street. This is Manatee Avenue, and on your left would be where the courthouse is. And we're going to take a look at that in a minute. This is the discovery I found that is not in my book, but it's not on the digital for Manatee County, and I've never found it before. I found this in a St. Petersburg Times article, and at St. Petersburg Times, a lot of people don't know that it goes back into the 1800s. And this is the Adeline Graham Hotel. And this is the hotel that Manatee County, and we have a commissioner here, thanks for being here, Commissioner Ballard, that Manatee County rented in the 1880s for the courthouse while they were planning on building a courthouse. And on the first floor were the judges. That's where they held court. And on the top floor was the county commission, and they had other business going on. That's what it looked like in 1900. Somebody had planted some trees. And for those of you that have been around here a long time, it turned into the Gar House. And do you remember the Gar family that had that? This is on the corner of Main Street and 4th Avenue downtown. And that's where it was. Now it's a parking lot. Here's the courthouse. It's in my book. This is a different one that I put in the first book. There's the one in the first book, and that's the intersection of Manatee Avenue and Main Street looking east. And so here's the new discovery I made. This picture, and you're going to have to look really close, and you're going to see the outline of that courthouse back there. And so the reason this is important for me to find something like this, it really shows the geography and the terrain of the 1800s, maybe early 1900s, of what it was like in that area in downtown Bradentown at that time. So now let's talk about a few other things that I found more discoveries of. And actually, Judge Williams, I wish he was here because he was involved in a lot of the news about this that they did some in the last few years. There was, I found a lot of articles and information that I was going to confirm of illegal hangings in Manatee County, or called lynchings. And all of these articles that you see here that I'm going through were not in the local newspaper. They were not in the Manatee River Journal. They weren't in the Bradenton Times. These were in articles that went all the way throughout all over the country, where I was able to find this with new research that I have. And it's just sort of interesting that I write about it, and it's included in the book, all this, because it's part of our history. It's not the best part of our history, but I think it's important to put it in there as we were trying to. Now, does that have and that's Donna, my assistant, and Judge Mercurio, thank you again, because that's what I want it to be, interactive. Now, that may look like that cat had a mask on, and I'm not sure, but we need to examine that closer. But I have this up here. This is the pandemic of 1918, which they didn't call a pandemic at the time, but this was the Spanish flu. And I put this up here because it turns out that let me go back. It turns out that it affected the court system. And Judge O.K. Reeves, had to suspend court several times, and he had to, because he couldn't get enough jurors, because there were too many people sick or infected, and servicemen were exempt from jury service, of course, and they were gone. So, but this news article here, there weren't much news articles that were about the pandemic. Much like we just experienced in our pandemic, there was sort of it got political, and there was sketchy stories, and people were more concerned about not telling people what the true news was at the time, and it was very divided on what was done. And so they did not report it as much, and there were millions of people who died worldwide from that. This is our, at the time, Mayor Gabby Knowles, Gordon Brown Knowles, and this is Gabby Knowles. And here's what's interesting I discovered about Gabby. He was so well connected. He had been a World War II survivor, and he survived poisonous gas. He was in the Army, but he was quite the connected guy, and he had a good relationship. And these are pictures, 2 pictures with him with, of all people, Tom Edison and Henry Ford. And they were frequent visitors here because Thomas Edison had a rubber plant that he was down in the Everglades, but he came to Reasoner's Nursery to buy rubber plants. And so that he was here quite a bit. Now this is Judge Tucker. And Judge Tucker was a county judge for about 20 years here. And he was known for his fish fries for this bar association. He cooked fresh fries all the time for the bar association. Well, this is Sam Murphy, and he beat him in an election. Sam wasn't a lawyer. He was a businessman. And so Sam Murphy here, there's a picture of him, but before he was a judge, he was also a traffic officer from Manatee County. So one day he followed a car across the Green Bridge, the new Green Bridge at the time, followed him, and he couldn't stop this speeding car, and it turned out to be no other than Babe Ruth. And he didn't know who Babe Ruth was, and so this article that didn't appear locally, but it appeared in the Tampa Tribune. Let's see if I can go back. Well, the article disappeared, but anyway, the article was there. So it was in the Tampa Tribune that I found this article about Babe Ruth being stopped. And for those of you who like baseball, like Duran, I know you'll find that interesting. But I thought it was very interesting. Okay, so moving ahead, in the last 12 years since I wrote the first book, we have had a lot of presidents, and so I'm just running through the presidents. We have great presidents that we've elected for the Bar Association, and I've got all their pictures up here, most of them. And then we have Grace Ann Federico, who's joined us as our executive director. That was new, and she took over, of course, from Sue Revel, who's here today, and we appreciate you being here. We have a new court administrator, Kim Miller, who in the last 10 years, she had been there a long time, but when Walt Smith retired, and if you saw in the video, he was falling asleep as a juror. He probably needed to, but Kim Miller took over, and she's the first attorney to become a court administrator of this circuit, and she's probably one of the only ones in the state, I would imagine. And look who's here. Now, Floyd and Bobby. And I have them there because this is quite the example of community service, and they are an example of that, the work that they do throughout the community. We really do appreciate, Floyd, everything you've done, and you're a role model for all of us. Now, here we go. I had to put this in the book, and COVID happened, and so where were we? We're on Zoom. Well, guess what? We're still on Zoom, aren't we? A lot of us are, and it started within, but I had to include that in the book because it's part of our history. And Judge Bonner, I'm sorry she's not here today, but Judge Bonner became our first female chief judge, and she had the difficult part of being in the when COVID hit, that she was the chief judge, and she did a great job. She had assistants in each of the courthouses. Judge Moreland was one of her assistants, and I think it was Judge Roberts in Sarasota. Judge Roberts? Okay, thank you. So then we elected, and I had to put all the judges in here who got elected in the last 10 years. And all of these, we had such brilliant, attractive, really intelligent judges that were elected, and thank you all for being here. Now, I'm so tickled every time I think about our county judges, and I'll tell you why. And Judge Brown's right there. Because within a 2 or 3 year period, we went from an all-male county judge bench to an all-female county judge bench, and a few of them are here today. Or are they all here? They're all here. Now, I of course, wanted to put up here the bench. I believe it's 32. Judge Moreland, the chief judge, can correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it 32? 32, and I don't know what the ratio is, but it's, it changes, goes back and forth. the ladies were ahead of us, right? I put Angel in here. Right. Angel Coloniso, the clerk of the court, first female clerk of the court that is also an attorney. So it's quite a lot of history in Manatee County. Amanda Ballard's in the back, commissioner, and I have her here because as a member of this bar association, she got elected and became the first county commissioner to be a member of this bar and get elected. It turns out there was a lawyer a few years ago, Amy Stein, that was on the board, but she wasn't as active as she was. And Amanda was in my division as a child welfare attorney, and that's what she does. So we're so happy to have her there. Fred, where's Lisa? And she was stuck at a council. Yep, you're going to have to tell her. So we're so proud of her, and you may have seen her in the video of Pine Level, but if you didn't, she's in this photo here. And she was out there when we were filming that. Of course, she's the first attorney on the Bradenton City Council, so we're so proud of her. And Pam DiAgostino, I don't see Pam here either, but she's the first county attorney of Manatee who is a female, and we're really proud of her there. And Janelle's here. Janelle Esposito Van Hoos is the first female lawyer to be, actually the first attorney to be chairman of the female attorney, because Cliff, you did that. The chairman of the Manatee Chamber of Commerce. She's the first female attorney to be chairman and of course I couldn't leave out Scott Westheimer for the first lawyer in our area and a member of this bar that is president and served as president of the Florida Bar. And Tommy Gregory, the first lawyer to be appointed president of State College of Florida. So we're so proud of him. Now, in the last few years, we've had some great programs, and I hope we can keep it up. You know, we have at least had 2 people here at our meetings that have now served or are Attorney General of the United States. So with Pam Bondi and then Janet Reno, we've had 2, and we had some more. And there's Ray Bellamy in the back. And, you know, Ray is here with Jim Boyd when Jim spoke to us. But Ray is somebody that has helped us because the young lawyers have attached to his Thanksgiving Day drive. And it's really been helpful for him to be a part of all this. And I had to put up the women lawyers Florida Association of Women Lawyers, and I have this up here to just recognize what the good work that all the Florida Association of Women Lawyers do. And of course, I think this is the young lawyers started this, didn't they? The Wills for Heroes, am I correct, or was that a bar association? Young lawyers. So they did this for several years, and it's quite successful. And then I had to put the child welfare lawyers up there because they're in my division. And they're having a banquet. So, in conclusion, I do want to say that, you know, I research and write these books because I think it's important to preserve history, but I also want to bring people together. And I know, sitting out there and looking at who I'm seeing, all my friends, all these people I love so much and care about so much, to bring people together. That's what I want my books to do, is to bring people together. So I hope to be in front of you next year when I'm going to be talking about my next book, Legends of the Bench. So as soon as I can get a little bit more material, I got to find some more of that unpublished material on Durand, and he's done a new movie now. He's got a new movie, The Fish Fry, that's in the Sarasota Film Festival. Then I'll be back. And so the last thing I want to say is that I do have a special file where I'm keeping information. Cliff, you told me not to talk about this, didn't you? Anyway, and I'm keeping a file, and that is a title, and I'm sorry Abigail's not here. Is Abigail here? Abigail came up with the best title to it, and that was Lawyers and Legends After Dark. And that's going to be published either after I die or my agent tells me the coast is clear, but Cliff's got another idea. We'll work on that. So thank you very much.
Judge Smith, can you stay up here just to keep it back up a minute?
Yeah.
Thank you again for everyone for coming out. One more round of applause for Judge Smith. Thank you very much. Thank you, Judge Moreland, for the warm-up. And we do have one, and I'm not sure if Judge Smith has ever seen this before. This is a tumbler. He could probably donate 15 of these, but we appreciate his service. Just one more or two more quick comments. First, on your tables, there is a Legal Aid of Minnesota paper. It's white with a blue bottom, looks like this. We didn't have time today to introduce Pam Fields on behalf of Legal Aid, but if you guys have any interest in serving, it kind of dovetails very nicely into Judge Smith's presentation. You can now receive CLE credit for pro bono cases. So if you have any questions, please get with Pam Fields, who's in the back, or Linda Harradine at Legal Aid. But this paper basically is everything you need to take a case. They are in need. They are in need. So that was the first thing. The only other thing is our next luncheon will be Wednesday, March 26th, with special guest Jeff Babuda with Operation Gator Farm. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So with that said, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you.